Awesome, thank you. Hello everyone again. I'm Jenny Paxson. I'm from the Webster Public Library. I'm a Reader's Discovery Librarian. I also have hosted our Special Needs Parent Resource Fair. And so we had made a partnership with Parents Helping Parents Coalition of Monroe County and with Challenger Miracle Field of Greater Rochester. And we started up these diverse abilities dialogues. And this is our fourth one in our series. This is our Adults in Transition. And we are very excited here at the Webster Public Library to have these collaborations with community organizations and get this information out to the community. And so I will be giving over the mic to Beth, and she will talk a little bit about Challenger Miracle Field. And then I'll have one of our members from Parents Helping Parents talk about their organization, and then we'll get right into the presentation or the panel. There you go.
This guy.
Yeah, sorry.
No, it's okay. Hi, everybody. So good to see so many people here. We're really excited, like Jenny said, to have this out in the community and this information available. I am a special needs mom myself, and at one point in time, I was that mom who had 2 little kids, and one with special needs, and felt very lost and didn't know what was available. So I'm really hopeful that by doing this, we can reach those in the community who maybe were as lost as I was, or maybe just want a little bit more support, a little bit more information about these specific things like this panel. So I'm very, very happy that you guys are here. And so now what I'm lucky enough to do is I'm the director of Challenger Miracle Field. We are an all-inclusive, no boundaries, only possibilities field. We're actually just behind this building here. We've got a fully accessible field, all ages, all abilities. And we do programming year-round. We do sports, but we also do social events. We've got a Halloween party coming up, and then we'll do a Valentine's dance. So we really try to give our players and their families the full experience. And I always say that we're about so much more than just baseball and sports, because we're about this kind of thing. At the field, our kids can play, or while they're bowling, the parents can talk, and get these connections and resources, and that's really kind of the magic of what you don't maybe see on our website, is that's what we do, is we really provide that safe space for the kids and parents. So I'm very happy to be here with everybody. So who's coming up next? Britt? Okay. There you go. I think that's the microphone. Which was the mic? Yes, that's the mic, so hold that.
Okay. Hello, everybody. My name is Brittany Jensick. I am a mama to 21 children, 14 of whom have intellectual and developmental disabilities, and I am also the president of Parents Helping Parents Coalition of Monroe County. Our goal at Parents Helping Parents is to help support families. We initially targeted that 0 to 5 age group, navigating suspected challenges and delays, trying to seek a diagnosis, getting a diagnosis, and kind of all of those new challenges that are so overwhelming at the beginning. What we've realized as our children have grown and as we've had more contact with the whole community is that this is a lifelong journey. I'm really excited that our panel's here today, because I think that there's always more to learn, and this is an area that I am just getting into with my oldest child. And I am really excited to work with Challenger and to work with Webster Library, kind of hoping to build those collaborations within the community so that we have some semblance of a safety net and people are not falling through the cracks. There's just too many people out there that are alone on this journey, and we don't want anybody to feel that way. So I am glad to be here, and I appreciate you all being here.
I just wanted to mention one more thing. Our next panel will be on September 4th. It's Early Intervention Awareness Month. And so we're going to have the Early Intervention Awareness panel. And I just wanted to piggyback off of what Brittany says, because they have a great organization that helps with people who are just starting out. And so this panel will also help in that area. And I also have 2 kids with developmental disabilities. And so I think a lot of people get involved in this because of that background too, because they want to help other people. And I feel very passionate about that. So we're going to get started. And Matt, if you want to start and tell us a little bit about your organization and why you started, why you got involved in this too.
Sure.
So.
Hi, everybody. My name is Matt Fico. I'm the manager of outreach and enrollment with the ARC of Monroe. We're an adult service provider agency, so we start supporting people and adults in our world are students that have either graduated at age 18 with a New York State Regents or local diploma, or have aged out of transition services at now age 22. He was prior 21. So that's when we normally would start working with those students as they age out. And of course, we also work with people that are living in the community. So it doesn't have to be directly from aging out of school, also just older adults in the community who are looking for programs and services. We are an OPWDD service provider, so a person would have to have OPWDD eligibility. That's the first step for working with our agency. And then secondly, there are, within OPWDD, there are specific waivers that would pay Medicaid, it's through Medicaid, that would pay for a person to attend services. One of the big things that we always talk about in the adult world is the difference of, for those of you that have students that are in school currently, of eligibility in high school versus, entitlement in high school versus eligibility in the adult world. And what that means is it isn't, in school, as a student is going through their school years, they have an opportunity to try different services, to do work study, to do different types of programming dependent on their support needs. In the adult world, it really is based upon a person's support needs. There are certain levels of service, and we call it the continuum of services, starting with the most restrictive, and that has a negative connotation, but it really isn't. It's just the environment that could be more supportive for people that might need to have either higher behavioral, higher medical support needs, higher staff to person support to ratio, and that would be the day habilitation. The next step beyond day habilitation is a community pre-voc type of service where there are internship opportunities for people to gain work skills, and the goal of those programs is to find a job in the community. And then finally, supported employment services that we are referred through Access VR for a person to get a job coach, to find employment in the community, to have somebody train them in that job, and to make sure that they are successful in whatever career path that they would like to pursue. And then also within our services, there's things like community rehabilitation, which is building independence, gaining skills, things like, learning how to budget, going shopping for yourself, learning how to cook, cleaning. There's those everyday independent skills that can help a person to move on in their life and to gain those skills so that maybe somebody's goal is to live on their own, or if they're living in a supported apartment or a group home, to be able to still, within that, even though you have direct support professionals that are also helping, having that ability to do things on your own as well. Speaking of group homes, the ARC of Monroe operates 30 different group homes throughout Monroe County. And by the way, we do support people just within Monroe County. So there's different ARCs all throughout New York State. So pretty much every county has an ARC. We are affiliated through the ARC of New York, but each ARC is its own independent entity. So we have our own management, our own executive management team, our own board of directors, our own programs and services. So we have, somebody who's maybe moved from Orleans County and they're moving into Monroe. Unfortunately, it isn't as simple as like, okay, it's an ARC and you just switch over services. We still have to do the exploratory types of figuring out, where it can be best supported, those type of things. But we help people with that. Normally, in our department, we are the first point of contact for people as they begin to look for services. So as part of what we do as well is making sure that, like was mentioned earlier, it is a whole new world leaving school, and there's so many things to be aware of, and there's so many changes, and many families don't know where to start. Of course, if you have OPWD and a care coordinator, ideally the care coordinator is that first point to be able to assist people through finding different supports and services. However, even sometimes care coordinators don't know everything that's out there. So we try to, at least within our agency, try to figure out where that person's support is. So we try to find out about the person, learning about what supports they have, what past experiences they've had, if they're coming from school, were they on a track or a pathway for, rehabilitation, community pre-vote, things like that. So it's just all about learning about that person and finding out the best program and service that can support them. And as a person goes through that continuum as well, it doesn't mean that if you start in Dayhab, that's where you're going to be your whole life. We've had people that have started in Dayhab because that's, initially where they were best supported, and they've gone all the way through getting a job. We've got people that have had a job, but they're older now and they want to retire, and so they might take a step back and maybe do something. They still want to be active and still want to be social, and so they might take part in like a day rehabilitation too. So you can move within that. Just all depends on types of supports that are available within our agency. And again, one of the great things about Monroe County is that there are so many different agencies in our area. Of course, I work for the ARC, so I'm biased. I like to think that we offer a lot. But, we have people that, there's other agencies. There's CDS Monarch, there's Heritage Christian, there's Holy Childhood, Starbridge, EPI. There's so many. So we are very lucky in this area to have so many different adult service providers and different agencies that can also provide services for students with IDD. So.
Peggy, would you like to say a little about your agency?
Wonderful. I'm Peggy Fortune. I'm from Al Siegel Community of Agencies. As Matt mentioned, Continuum, we offer services to agencies, a collaborative network of independent nonprofits that serve people with special needs, and they serve a continuum of ages, from birth through adult services, and pretty much every kind of program you can imagine. Our member agencies are CP Rochester, EPI, Medical Motor Service, the National MS Society, Rochester Hearing and Speech Center, and Rochester Rehabilitation. Our newest member agency is Starbridge, as you mentioned. Our affiliate organizations that have been with us since the beginning of Al Siegel, are the ARC and Mary Cariola. We have overlap with so many different agencies. My sister would attend a day program similar to the ARC's program. My mom would benefit from the services of Future Care and some of the transition planning and guardianship and so forth. The program that she attended was made possible through a program similar to Access VR. So I like to say that I'm in the center hub of a wheel, and the member agencies are the wheel. So I'm best at answering questions today rather than offering a detailed presentation on the differences in adult services. But many of our agencies do offer services from that time in transition from high school into adulthood, pre-vocational employment programs, adult programs, residential programs. There's so many different ways our agencies serve the community.
Shannon, would you like to?
Great lead into Future Care planning services, because Future Care is at the Siegel building, Siegel Center, and is a joint collaborative. It was originally set up as a pilot program with the ARC of Monroe and the Siegel Center. That history, I think, has kind of been absorbed within the community. But in 2002, I was a care coordinator at that time with another agency in the vast array of agencies that we have in Rochester. And I watched the pilot program start and was asked as a care coordinator for some families that might want to participate, so I saw its early beginnings with the ARC and Siegel Center. Future Care attempted, its dream was to help families secure their loved ones' future, so that when things happened and the adult caregivers aged and had not planned, we were finding that people were aging and not planning for their loved one and didn't have the resources and the know-how to do so. Crisis would happen, and a person with a developmental disability, the person therefore also went into crisis, and the whole family just kind of imploded, right? And so the idea was, if we could help families understand what they needed to do and get safety nets, things put in place, then they could help alleviate some of that. And so we at Future Care are comprehensive planning services that, once the pilot was successful, we went on to serve volumes of people over time, you know, and help get those planning pieces in place and secure families, loved ones' futures so that families could ideally have systems in place so that the loved ones were well cared for. So we do this with a 4-step planning process. We never had a wait list until a couple of years ago, so we now do have a wait list. We serve individuals 18 and over, but because of the wait list, we operate through referrals. Families are shaking their heads, they've heard. We ask that a care coordinator refer families to us. Most individuals come through OPWDD and have eligibility. It's not necessarily required. We will serve families without OPWDD eligibility. So if one does not have a care coordinator, that's fine too, call us. But if you do have a care coordinator, it's best if the referral comes directly from them. We require things from them. It's not a hard referral, it's just that it should come from them. So now at about age 17, we want you to get on the wait list, okay? Because the wait list is about 9 to 10 months long, and therefore when turning about 18, we'll get you in. So we do this comprehensive planning. It's a 4-step process. We now offer 2 ways to do it. Guardianship, which is what Future Care is thought of a lot for. However, keep in mind guardianship is just one piece of planning. There are a lot of things that we want to help families do besides guardianship. I happen to be a guardianship specialist. That is my role there. I, along with Margaret Lannon, help families with guardianship, but I have had other roles there and other hats. There are other parts of planning that are equally as important. Guardianship is one piece that is applicable to some individuals, and when it might not be, we can talk about other options to guardianship because there are other options out there as well. And another piece that we do in a series, we have people come in, well, I'm sorry, now that people don't always come in, we can do and often do virtual meetings, Teams meetings, so we meet families very easily by Teams for the first 3 meetings. The 4th meeting is usually in person, so our planning process involves about 4 meetings. It does take about 4 months. Guardianship is not a quick, easy process, so over those 4 months we're preparing for the guardianship process. That piece then continues into about the 6th month. Planning is happening all throughout that process. We then follow families for 2 years following that to assist families in ensuring that if guardianship was an option and something they're pursuing, we certainly are making sure we're getting through the court proceeding. Beyond that, we're also helping families through those 2 years, checking in to see if they need assistance with their other planning options if they've chosen that route. I say that because we've now separated it out so that because of the wait list, we've tried to move things along quickly so that if families are interested in a light form of planning and guardianship as their primary focus because maybe they've done a lot of planning already themselves or for other reasons, we can do that. They would receive what's called a letter of intent, I'll explain that, and guardianship. Another track, the second track, is a more full planning, so they'd receive a full plan, letter of intent, and guardianship. So there are now 2 ways to come through our program. I should say, and then I'll describe the letter of intent and plan. Our program is not completely, well, it's not free. There is a fee for our services. It is the lighter version of planning and letter of intent with guardianship is $450. The full planning with or without guardianship is $600. That being said, families whose loved one lives at home is eligible for family cash reimbursement. Our program is eligible for up to 300 of that. 300 on the 450. 450 on the 600. So bottom line, families end up with 150 in either case being reimbursed. That is now exclusively done with the care coordinator and no longer with Future Care. We used to kind of handle that. We are not, because it's now rather complicated. And I see smiles out there. Thanks for the support out there. And so that's done with care coordinators. But it is, you are still reimbursed, so that's very helpful for families. So bottom line, 150 if your family member lives at home. The letter of intent, I just want to mention briefly, so I like this. It is a document that we give to you and we can provide electronically. It is a legacy document. It documents everything about the person with the disability, right down to what they eat for breakfast, what their day is like, all their medical information. It can be as intense or as light as one wants it to be, but the more rich it is, the more useful it is when it's shared with future caregivers. It also is provided to you electronically so that the idea being you could keep it up to date over time. It can be shared not only with future caregivers in the event that one passes, but also now with self-directed plans and hiring staff for your son or daughter. I envision it, parts of it you could, if you don't want to share the whole thing, recreate another document with parts of it, just cut and paste the pages that you want, the parts that you'd want to share with another caregiver. We do a lot of the work for you. Have you ever done something like said, I want to get all this written down, I want to, put all this in one place about my son or daughter, and we don't. I know I don't, right? So we do all the work for you in that aspect. So it's called a letter of intent. It documents everything about the loved one as well as your wishes for their future. That's called the letter of intent. We do it in both tracks. The plan, if you're doing full planning, assists family and points them in the right direction with benefits, particularly Social SSI, applying for that, because typically at 18, families are often doing that. Informing them and helping them learn about supplemental needs trust, ABLE accounts, making sure that their loved one and their benefits are kept under resource limits, financial things like that, keeping under resource limits to continue to be eligible for benefits, and ensuring that they don't inherit money, things like that, things that are rather not easy to understand. We educate one on that and get you pointed in the right direction. While we don't set up the trust, our agency does offer a trust department. We do have a first-party trust and third-party trust. They are pooled, however. You learn through our program that there are ways to do private trusts, so you do have those options, but we at Future Care, whether you use our planning services or not, should you have a need for first or third-party pooled trusts, we do have those. And lastly, I should mention, we also house the Golisano Life Enhancement Fund. That provides, your care coordinator could apply for that. It cannot be applied for by a family member, by a person, by yourself, but through your care coordinator, you'd be eligible for $500, up to $500 of a purchase for your son or daughter for something that would benefit them. Tom Golisano donated money every year to a number of families up to a certain cap, and that can be applied for. Maybe many of you are already familiar with that fund. So those are the things of Future Care.
I did have a question. You mentioned the OPWDD waivers. What waivers are applicable to your services? All of them, or are there specific waivers?
Day rehabilitation, community pre-evoke, community rehabilitation. Quiz me on everything else. Let's see. Day pre-evoke. We have a recreation respite program, but it's not in-home respite, but you do have to have a respite waiver for that. Person has to live at home with family. We offer, of course, residential, which is a whole bear in itself, getting certified residential. And that's not just having residential, it's certified residential opportunities listing. And for residential, a person would have to first exhaust all non-certified housing options first. And then within the CROW, they call it the Certified Residential Opportunities, it's also called the CROW, there is tiered, there's also tiers within that. So the highest level of need is emergency support need, below that substantial, and below that's current. The ARC and most service providers who provide residential services can only look at people who are on the emergency needs listing. And normally emergency needs means a person that is in an unsafe, currently in an unsafe situation. They're in danger of being evicted. They might be homeless, those type of things. Hospitalized, family can no longer take care of them, family members passed away. That's the emergency needs listing. And that's all done through a person's care coordinator. The other waiver service, and then of course within waiver, there's also, there's self-direction, which is a whole other way to utilize budgets and toward services. You still have to be approved for that waiver. So just because you're self-directed doesn't mean that like, oh, we can also hire staff to go with them to program. If it's an OPWDD service provider, you can't have additional staff. Staff has to be within. Does that make sense?
No.
So if a person is...
Most
say,
of
for
our
example,
families have self-direction, so if you can elaborate on
Yeah,
the
so
self-direction
it-
piece, that would be awesome.
So self-directed is for people that want to utilize, they want to utilize budget through New York State, and they would work with a broker and fiscal intermediary or FI and their care coordinator to identify services. Some people might use their self-direction and use that towards, so say, I gave that residential example. A non-certified option through self-direction is maybe a family uses their self-direction budget and they work and they have they're friends with other families that might have children that have intellectual and developmental disabilities. They decide we're going to rent a home and now we're going to use our self-direction budget to staff that home. And our budget is going to go towards staffing of that home versus certified setting where the home is owned by the agency, it's staffed by the agency, the nursing, the direct support professionals, the behavior specialists are all done by the agency. A person with self-direction can also utilize, their budget, a chunk of that budget, which is normally a pretty big chunk, can go towards a certified housing. However, you can't then additionally say, oh, I have additional budget, I want to also have my own staff at that home with my son or daughter. That you couldn't do that. Same example for like day habilitation. We have seven different day hab programs with the ARC and Monroe, all staffed by ARC staff, all same idea, nursing, behavioral, all that is staff. I've had families that have self-direction and they say, well, my son or daughter is a one-to-one and we want to make sure we have a staff in addition to that, to your staff so that they can attend program. We would not be able to support that because it's basically in the state size, it's double dipping. Does that make a little more sense then? Same with like community pre-voc, the idea of all those different types of programs. So, for example, a person that is going to look at community pre-vocational waiver, which again, like I mentioned before, is internship programs for people to gain work skills. They work on social skills, independent skills, work readiness skills, so they can ultimately get a job, supported employment job in the community. In order, the ARC, for example, and some agencies might have different, for the ARC, a person would have to be 30 minutes of independence in the community. They would need to be able to self-medicate. They would need to be no assistance with any activities of daily living, or ADLs, no community behavior support plan. And then, of course, the biggest piece is having waiver eligibility through OPWDD for community pre-vocational services. So within waiver, through OPWDD, sorry, I'm giving a lot of information, so that's keeping my eyes glazed over. Within the waiver, a care coordinator would first go through what's called a service amendment request tool, a SART, in the OPWDD, and there are OPWDD specialists that would look for with that SART as a justification as to why this person would require that level of service. In OPWDD's eyes, they always want the least restrictive environment. So if you look at it, like the first step is going to be, they want everybody to get a job in the community. Of course, that's unrealistic for some people. Some people might never be able to attain employment because their support needs and their level of independence is never going to be able to be supported in that realm. So, but OPWD's eyes, your justification has to show why a person couldn't immediately go to work, why they would need that internship opportunity first. So that would get, and if the justification is done properly by the person's care coordinator, they would be approved and have waiver services for community pre-voc service. And then they can take that waiver and use it for any agency in the area. As long as that agency has community pre-vocational services, that waiver allows them to apply for that specific service within the agency. So whether it's the ARC Monroe or CS Monarch or LAI, lifetime assistance, you could take that waiver and use that towards that service. Same with, like I was mentioning before, with self-direction, you still have to be approved for community pre-vocational waiver services if you're going to utilize an agency's service. So even if you have self-direction, they would still have to be approved for that SART for community pre-voc. However, your budget would just, instead of the money going directly to the agency, you budget it out, and then that is used to pay for that person's service. Does that make sense? It probably does not. It's like I said, a lot of, but again, these are the conversations I have with families and trying to, of course, when I sit down with a family, I don't just barf out information. We try to figure out specifically what is going to be the best service. And a lot of times, so for example, a person coming from school, ideally, as a person is getting ready to age out, normally the year, hopefully it could start earlier, but the year before a person is getting ready to either graduate or age out of school, they're working with that person's school staff, their teachers, their transition specialists, and their care coordinators to identify the pathway so that when they age out of school, it isn't, oh no, what do we do? It is, okay, now we have a plan in place and we're starting to tour, and by the way, I recommend families start touring programs the year before they start to exit school, because it gives you an idea as to what the programs are about. You can look at different agencies. Before you go to apply, it's a good idea to find out what everything's about, because not everything's created equal. And every program, like I said, we have 7 different day rehabilitation services. We have 6 different community pre-voc programs. They're all different. And it's not one size fits all. And it's all based upon a person's goals, a person's interest level. Some are more intensive than others. Some have cutoffs where it might be a 1-year program versus, talking about pre-voc for this example, a 1-year program versus open-ended where a person could stay in as long as they need to. Ultimately, you don't want somebody to be in a pre-voc program for 20 years because, again, goals of pre-voc are to find community employment. But pre-voc programs would then pass people off to Access VR. They would start to work with Access to be referred for job readiness services or supported employment services. I don't know if I lost my train of thought, but yeah, so that's kind of what our job is as an agency, and many agencies have a similar role, where when a person starts to look at that agency for services, we're there to help, because again, there's all these different agencies, all these different programs that a person could be part of. At a specific agency, my job and our department's job is to help even within our agency to whittle that down, so that we're not looking at 14 different things, we're looking at 1 or 2. And then assist, be a liaison with the care coordinator too, to make sure that the applications are in a timely manner.
Another question? How do agencies like yours work with school districts, or is it just the case manager and parent-driven with that transition? We've heard in the community that the transition to adulthood is not the greatest level of support. And also, second question is, are you also working with physicians' offices? Like when a kid ages out of seeing a pediatrician, that transition doesn't go well either. Are you connected with physicians' offices working with adults with intellectual development disabilities to be kind of referred to you? So school district and physicians, how do you play with those characters?
If I could jump in on the school district question, one of our member agencies, Starbridge, specializes in that area of advocacy. They have a lot of parent support staff who have gone through the process and now are working at the agency to help other parents with that transition. So I can't say enough about Starbridge with that school transition, because as you mentioned, there's so many options. Having so many parents as staff now, and their staff multiple decades within the agency, they've really seen so many different scenarios that they can help guide. They're very, very active with the school systems. If you wanted to talk about the physician question, I know our agencies have run into the transition between young adult to adulthood. So if you wanted to check out our website at alsiegel.org, you can check out how various agencies are presenting that information about adult services. But that might be something specialized that you've run into before.
So we do not work with a person's physician. The only way we would work with a person's physician is, and it isn't helping the transition from pediatrician, because again, we're an adult agency, so we're not going to be part of that pediatrician to adult, or to, a primary care. And our main focus is more of just getting a person services. We might need documentation from that physician, but again, it's the care coordinator's job to really assist with that. That's where a person's care coordinator comes in. I can't stress enough that when you have a care coordinator, doesn't mean that care coordinator is tied to you your whole life. If you are not happy with and I'm not trying to dump on care coordinators, but if there are any here, I don't want to badmouth it. But if you have a care coordinator who you don't feel that you're getting the support necessary, because again, every 6 months you're going to have a life plan with your care coordinator. But it doesn't mean that it's only once every 6 months you're going to be talking to that care coordinator. Their job is to assist with making sure the person's benefits are up to date, if you're receiving Medicaid or Medicare or any type of other social services, to help assist with that as a resource to help find a physician. If maybe you're not, that's their job, is to make sure a person, their wellness is taken. It's not just, are they in a program? It's making sure that their life is, are they making their doctor's appointments? If they're having trouble finding a doctor, assisting with helping to find one. Are they having issues with testing that's being done and maybe not being able to find a place that can offer testing? Like the ARC has clinical services. We have our Article 16 clinic. But that we don't have primary care physicians do that. It's occupational therapy, physical therapy, speech therapy, nutrition. We do have social work, so you can get mental health services through us. We also have a full-time psychiatrist and psychologist on staff, so we can write prescriptions, but we do not offer just primary care, either pediatrician or primary care medication. So to answer your question, we don't help in that, but that's where care coordinators come in. So I guess getting back to my point, if you're not happy or you don't feel that your care coordinator is as supportive or as resourceful as you need to be, you can change care coordinators. Mm-hmm. So it's within the agency, so say there's two in our area, by the way. There's two care coordination organizations that cover our area. It's Prime Care and Person-Centered Services. There are 200 care coordinators with Prime Care, and I think 180 with Person-Centered Services, so there's plenty. You don't have to, and again, they're busy too. They have a big caseload, but you could always ask to switch if you do not feel you're getting services. It becomes more difficult switching from one CCO to another. If you want to go completely change agencies altogether, that is a little bit more involved process, but within the agencies themselves, they support. But yeah.
Thinking about your question, another resource might be the Golisano Autism Center.
Yes.
They have a navigator line that is really kind of a front door approach. You can call not only to try and enroll in services, but call with a question, like we think we might have an issue with this coming up. Do you know of any providers that we should reach out to? the Navigator system at the Golisano Autism Center is another great resource.
Yeah, great point. Yeah.
I will say if you're pursuing guardianship, and your son or daughter's turning 18, you're on the wait list. If you have the option, please stay with your pediatrician. We do need 2 doctors to complete forms that the individual needs a guardian, and if you switch, it's harder to do it with a brand-new doctor. So if you have the option to stay, please don't be eager to switch if at all possible.
And you would ask too about just transitioning and how we work. So we start, I work with a lot of the schools, transition specialists, to schedule like group tours. I always send out information like the art, we do a lot of like community events. Of course, we come out and present, but we also do ones on our own. And I will always invite all school districts and CCOs. And we rely on them to be able to then send that information to parents and families. Because again, we don't have access to, first of all, to know everybody in this area would be impossible. So we do rely heavily on care coordination organizations, on schools, to be able to relay that information to families so that if they have somebody that's either in their school or district or, as a care coordinator, knowing what the needs of that person are, that they can identify and say like, yeah, this would be a great thing for the person I support to go to or their family and giving them information. But we always try to, like I said, like come this fall, it's normally like one of our busiest times of year because I'm starting to work with those aging out students for 2025 or graduating students and figuring out which programs and services. So we start to do tours. We do individual tours, we do group tours, and just trying to identify. We also have partnerships we're part of like the Transition Collaborative in New York State. So we get together, it's a monthly meeting where 8 agencies and schools all get together to kind of talk about things that are going on in the district, any changes, and also just to network and be able to provide information and assist that way too. So if your transition specialist or school is interested, have them contact me. Happy to schedule anything. Or again, also invite families to reach out as well to be able to do individual tours as well. You don't have to just rely on your school. It becomes more difficult. It's easier when you have more people kind of helping to support as you transition through, but sometimes families also have to, if they don't feel they're getting that, they also have the ability to advocate for their son or daughter to look for programming too. You don't have to just rely on everybody else. And then we can also, it kind of could circle back, if the initiator is the family, then we can kind of bring in the school and the care coordination organization after and say like, hey, we've been talking to this family and this is what they're looking at. We need to get this rolling so that they're ready, so that when they exit school, it isn't just like, hey, I'm leaving school and now what do I do? It's an easy transition for that student to, that's the other big piece too, sorry. I'm thinking of other things as I'm talking. To trial, so if you're looking at programs, being able to trial a program before you exit school is also very important. Because if a person is able to trial while they're still in school, a lot of times the school staff can come out for that trial. Normally trial is like a week. And a trial is the opportunity for staff at a program to better evaluate a student. And then also for the student, they have agency to be able to say like, I don't like it here. This is not for me. One of the biggest, unless a person has a legal guardian, at age 18, you are an adult. And parents, a lot of times, will drive that, but at the same time, it's also up to, if you're not a legal guardian, that student has the ability to decide or adult has the ability to decide which program or service they want to be a part of. And a family member can't force them to stay in that. We can't force them to stay in that. But the earlier on you get in a program and they start to make friends, they get to know the staff, they feel comfortable, it makes it an easier transition. So when they do leave school, they already have a place, a good landing spot that they feel comfortable in and know that it's going to be successful.
Can we go back to that, Matt? Because,
Yeah.
so you said at 18 about the, can't force the individual, and with guardianship. We get that question not just about programs or whatnot, but do understand that even with guardianship, first of all, you can't get guardianship before an individual turns 18, happens after. It's not seamless. You can't have it right when someone turns 18. Can't petition the court till your loved one is 18, okay, so it happens after. But secondly, even with guardianship, I'm interested in how DAHAB operates, but we tell families, or we're under the notion, you can't, if I'm a person's guardian, I still can't force someone, I can't make someone, I can't sign and say, you will attend this program versus the other, right?
Yeah.
A program won't take someone if they're not willing.
That's right.
If they're gonna oppose it and not wanna go. So even if you're a guardian, that role as a guardian is really more advocacy. You can encourage and be the one to really advocate for that and point everything out, and the program is going to listen to you more than they would if the person's their own guardian. Indeed, that's true, but understand there's a bit of, still give and take.
Yeah.
Even with guardianship for medications, you cannot force to medicate over objection, so there's limits to guardianship, and it's important that families understand that. It's not a simple solution to everything. We get those calls a lot, and I just wanted to take the opportunity,
that's
to point that
exactly.
out, yeah.
Yeah.
So do we have any other questions around the room?
I have two separate ones. So we had a great experience with Future Care, so thank you. We found it very easy. Social Security was much messier. Just a quick, because out of curiosity, what's the current status with supported decision making? Because there's a lot of mumbling, like that's the future. That's for many individuals going to be a better option than guardianship. And I'm bringing it up just so families with young ones are aware, because it's a great way to support your loved ones without taking complete control away from them as adults. So I was just curious if Future Care has been involved with that at all yet, or it's very new, I know, so.
We're still not here, so it's our understanding that it's legalized, it should be accepted legally. However, in this, OPWDD is within their year or so, although I believe it's been extended, to develop the plan for how it's going to be executed and rolled out and the rules, so as we know how OPWDD rolls. Wait, I'm being recorded, but it takes time. Sorry, it does take time. 22 years in the field
Right.
does give one.
So
the
we'll still wait
opportunity.
in the future.
It'll take time, I think, for it to be able to roll out. If you go to supportedDecisionMakingNY.org, so Support Decision Making, SDMNY.org, sorry, hard unless I write. If you go to their website, there you're going to get the latest information and the dates about the rollout and so forth. And I believe there are ways that, so a document can be drawn up, and if it's notarized, right now you can sort of do your own. There's a DIY way, it's my understanding. I'm not real familiar. We're not doing them at Future Care, so we're not tackling that at all, if ever. I can't make I don't know,
Okay.
what we're going to be doing in that arena, if anything. I suppose it's yet to be seen. It depends on what rolls out, You're right, though, it is a good option to look at. We advise people to look at it. We always will inform and educate people about it. I do believe that's true, whether or not we assist. It requires a facilitator, as you're aware. So
Right.
in order to develop a supported decision-making plan, one needs a facilitator, and it takes time to develop one for an individual to develop who's going to be an individual's people to help them make their decisions in various areas, and then it has to be made official right now with notary, and then it's to be accepted. However, it can be changed at any time, so how that could be accepted then by a doctor. So how does a doctor know? Here's my question. So how do they know it hasn't been changed, right? Like, so I personally have questions about it, you know.
Yeah, and I don't know, like but I know it's coming, and, you know, a lot of people think that it could be a positive thing.
I do agree.
So we'll
I
see,
do.
you know, 5 or 10 years from now, then what.
Correct, I
what
agree.
the
I
world
just
looks
think
like
we're
with
gonna
that.
have to look at all of how that
Oh, yeah.
works out, you know.
Mhm.
Right now, you know, along that venue, just to say, we advise families, if your son or daughter is turning 18, and because you can't get guardianship right away, and if you're coming to us and you're on the wait list, we get families say, what am I supposed to do? I'm on the wait list, blah, blah, blah. You know, it's helpful if your son or daughter can sign their name and either in any fashion or any form, have them sign releases of information that will allow you to at least continue to be present in appointments, advocate at every doctor's office you see, at every provider and so forth, through OPWDD. That will at least extend things as best, not full-on guardianship, but it will, you know, help you make phone calls for them, make appointments and so forth. So please start doing that. It's probably helpful to do it when they're 17 and a half, approaching 18, do it so it's in place. And that will help in the meantime before guardianship.
My second question is for Matt. Does the ARC still support an adult program at Nazareth? And what would that program be called?
Life Prep at NAS,
Mhm.
yep, so there is, Life Prep at NAS is an adult community pre-vocational program. There is also a student side. It's through, so a person, if they are in transition age 18 to 21 and they want to attend Life Prep, you could do that. You would do it through your CSE and apply through Victor Central. You do not need to live in Victor to apply to Life Prep at NAS. That's one of the biggest questions I always get. But we don't, but that's done through your school district and the student side. The adult side is community pre-voc. It is a 4-year adult community pre-vocational program. It is, so it mirrors the college experience. It is, it takes place at Nazareth campus. It's for students that want a college experience, so there are social skill building classes, there are work skill building, they do internships both on and off campus as part of that program. They are not matriculated, so the other thing too is you're not a matriculated student, so you're not getting college credit. However, you can audit college classes that are for free. That's part of this program. So it's kind of cool. A student can take a class. They might choose, say they want to do a major in English. They can take an English class once a semester. They get assigned coursework like any other student. Of course, the coursework can be made accommodations depending on that person's level of understanding and support. They also can get a student mentor that can assist them. So it's a really cool, unique program. We have another college experience program at MCC, very similar, again, 2 year. That one's 2 years, so it's very similar to, follows the MCC model. And the goal, again, the goals of those programs are to hopefully at the end of that 4 years is to be prepared for a job in the community. Not everybody, it's not a one and done though. We've had some people that have gone from Life Prep into another pre-voc if they're not quite ready. That is, we always have very high, it's a very competitive program, as you can understand. We have a lot of families, which is going back to that, of course, so I've had families that, like, that's what their parents' goal is. We want them to be a Life Prep, and the kid's like, I don't want to be at college. And they've gone to that program, and after like 5 months, they're like, yeah, I'm out of here. And like the parents are like, no, you got to make them stay. And we're like, no, we can't make them stay anymore. It's happened in other programs too, but normally, I mean, that's rare. I mean, most students that are part of the Life Prep love it. It's not open spots every year, so it's also being competitive. And because it's a 4-year program, it's not like, we take 10 students in, or actually 12 now, on the adult side. It's not 12 new students every year. There might only be 1 or 2 spots every year, because you have some students that are considered freshmen or sophomores or juniors, again, following the same way that a matriculated college student would have, so.
Well, you mentioned that one's competitive. There's also a program with CP Rochester and Roberts.
Yeah.
That's a very similar program.
Yep.
And it's wonderful because it includes immersion on campus, ability to pursue skills, and that pre-voc component. So-
Yeah, there's a few, like, there's the TOR program at U of R, like the Roberts program, so there's a few other,
St. John Fisher, I think that's.
I think so.
yep. That's, I think, the newest one.
Well, the St. John Fisher is the Webster one.
Oh.
I think that's what you're thinking of.
Oh,
The Webster
Webster
School District sends, and that's where my daughter is, sends a transition kid to classrooms on St. John Fisher campus, but they're not matriculated, they don't get to take college classes. It's run by a Webster paid teacher, or teachers, there's a couple, they actually moved all their transition classes there this year. It's a great program, but it doesn't quite have the level of independence and integration into the college campus that Nazareth has. So my daughter is at St. John Fisher right now, she's 20, we have another 2 years, 1 year? I gotta but she's one that loves this, and so
Yeah.
that's why I was thinking about the adult world, maybe waiting till she graduates, and then perhaps bridging over to Nazareth if she can get in, because this, I feel like is even preparing her for that, because when we first looked, when she was first transitioning, she was not independent enough for the Nazareth program, she was very independent for that program. But St. John Fisher it's like they took the Webster classrooms and just moved them over there. Now, they do interact with the college kids, some kids are able to work on campus, some kids come all the way back to Webster for job experiences or out to Pittsburgh, so it's different, that's what I'll say. It's great what they're doing, and one of the head teachers, Jen Hackett, is doing an amazing job, and it's changing and improving every year. So I love what Webster's doing with it, but it's not quite the same as Nazareth.
Yeah, so, great, because like and I mentioned before, Nazareth also has a student side through Victor Central. Again, they're same idea as the St. John Fisher one. The students, even though there is interaction between the adult side and the students, there is a higher ratio of staff to support. The level of independence is not as required. So we've got people that have been in the life prep student side, and then they've wanted to transition to the adult side, and again, normally by that time, they're ready, but we've got a few students we have not, even though they've been in the student side, we've not accepted into the adult, because that level of independence, when you think about it, you're walking, if you have a class from one end of campus to the other, there's not a staff that's walking with you. Of course, they show you, it's orientation, like when you first start that program, it's showing you where to go for this, where to go for that, being responsible for, know that at this point we're meeting for lunch or whatever. But at the same time, it's being able to walk across campus and having the ability, that, like, hey, you know what? I just want to leave campus. I'm going to go to Pittsburgh Dairy right now. And you can't walk down the street to go do that. You have to know that, like, there's responsibilities while you're at
I just
school.
want to correct myself real quick too, it's not just Webster students, Pittsburgh students are there, and I want to say Brighton also has classrooms that are doing the same thing.
Yeah, so like, right, because, so there are student college experience programs for transition age youth, and they're normally run by a specific school district, but doesn't mean that it's limited to that school district's students. You just would, again, petition through your CSE to apply in that regard.
Anybody know of any resources or questions about Medicaid, Medicare, no, Medicaid?
For applying for, or for?
No, my son's in it, but he's not with he's not in managed care, and he's gonna see a therapist, and the therapist doesn't take Medicaid, and I was told by a group of parents that I could maybe submit the bills to Medicaid. I'm just trying to figure out where I might get some help with that.
Care coordinator, maybe?
Yeah, you said he does not have a care coordinator?
He does, but she's been on paid PPO and had a lot of trouble trying to get a hold of anybody to help.
Did you know her supervisor?
I called her supervisor, she didn't answer, I called the supervisor's
agency is it?
supervisor.
Which agency?
It's, ARC.
Wouldn't be through the ARC, we don't have,
I'm sorry, well,
It'd be prime care or
Prime care versus
person-centered
services.
services.
Oh, person-centered services.
Okay. Years ago, Medicaid service coordinators were assigned to specific agencies. In 2018, it got diversified, and so like the state decided that they wanted to centralize and just have these two agencies instead of each. So it might have been through the ARC, because at one point, any Medicaid service coordinators we had all went to PCS, but that was in 2018. So we no longer have service coordinators.
Okay.
So if it's with PCS.
He has self-direction through ARC.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you have PCS, then, and you can't get a hold of her supervisor or her,
Well, they finally got back to me after I called the supervisor.
yeah. But right, that would be their job.
Okay.
It gets complicated. I
They
know
weren't
what you're
very
saying.
helpful. They told me to call Medicare,
Correct.
Medicaid.
They told you to call.
They might, because, I mean, I was a care coordinator. I have a little insight on that, but it's old. I've been out of
Yeah.
it for 6 years, and so, at least, maybe longer, I lose track. But I don't want to advise you because
Yeah.
what you're talking about is can be sticky, and I don't want to
Yeah.
steer you the wrong way.
Right, so,
I do have an 800 customer service number for person-centered plan, person-centered services. And, you know,
well, I
customer
did get
service,
through finally
Right, okay.
listening to their messages about who to call if it's, didn't seem like an emergency, but when you've waited, you know, a week or
Yeah.
more and they haven't gotten back to you and.
Yeah, I'm just thinking of like, they can assist with that. You know, there really isn't, there's the Center for Independent Living, like Regional Center for Independent Living, they have Medicaid specialists.
Or something.
Oh.
That's a good
Or
idea.
people that, not like, they don't work for the state. but
Right.
They have a specialty in knowing the Medicaid system.
Okay,
That
that's
might be an
idea.
option.
Yeah,
And it's free, you don't have to, you're not
Right.
paying for that type of service. 211 Lifeline, so if you dial star 211 from your cell phone, they have resources that can assist with finding maybe specific agencies that can assist with that.
okay.
But just generally, at the top of my head, I can't think of
Yeah.
anything.
I just would tell people that continue to have groups for, because I started a group in Arundecoit when my child was in junior high. But then after they age out, you lose touch with parents, and I learned the most through parents, you know, I'm
Yeah,
sorry,
that is,
but.
no, it's 100% true, because you all are the ones that have gone through this.
Yeah.
And for those parents that have experienced it, they can at least say what their experiences are and maybe have ideas. There's like places like, there's Parent to Parent New York State, which is a,
Yeah,
parent resource, obviously yours. So, no, I always say the first point should be to have a good relationship with other families that are going
yeah,
through the same thing.
and it's
because
harder as they get
yeah,
older.
You all can empathize with each other.
Yeah,
Not that it helps get your situation figured out, but still, maybe you can.
Right. I have a couple hot topic questions, and it's probably not appropriate for the fact that we're already 5 minutes over time. But we have heard through family members in our community that OPWD has put a halt to referrals right now. They're on hold while they're restructuring, or that's the verbiage they're using. Is there rumor or is there reality of people who currently have OPWDD services that they are going to be lost, or that there are going to be extra requirements that will prevent them from getting services like yours? Have you heard anything through the grapevine about that?
I have not. This is the first I've heard of.
Okay.
that.
They are not.
Halting, do you mean like
They are
the
not.
front door or just?
They're not approving, they are denying every single OPWDD application right now.
Denying it or just saying it's on hold, like that they're not
Denying.
accepting?
Denying, and then they say the reason is they are restructuring.
No, I've not.
So there's a
new to me.
huge concern for young families, or even families of, we've ran into some kids, adult children who have never applied to
Applied.
OPWDD, and we're like, how the heck did that happen? But it is true, and they're not accepting any they're not accepting, right? What's the, approving? What's the opposite of denial? Approving. They're not approving any new OPWDD applications right now.
Yeah, no, it's new to me. as
Okay,
well.
and you're
Yeah,
not
me
hearing about any OPWDs, like current services that are being provided, being changed
No.
in any way?
Because we're, at least I can speak to, like, waiver-wise, they're still, as long as the SART is put in properly, they've been approved.
Okay, and then the second hot topic is new brick and mortar building of certified residential has not happened in, what, decades?
Right.
Have you heard of anything happening
So
in the near
we're
future?
building two right now.
Tell us more about that
On
then.
Road. So we have
Please tell
two-
us that.
So we have two homes that we're building on Long Pond. In fact, it's just funny, we're trying to, so a lot of our homes, we've had people that have lived with the ARC for 40 years. And our big push is being aging in place, aging with grace. It's like but we want people to be able to, if they stay with the ARC and as a person ages, I know me, I'm falling apart. And so you start to get to a certain age and you need your person who's been mobile and active and they've lived in a 2-story home and they don't need, and all of a sudden now either their joints started to hurt, they've had medical issues, they're now in wheelchair bound. And so we're trying to build, we either buying, we just bought a new one, which is opening, hopefully, I think they just had the certification process yesterday, I think they met for it, on High Tree and Chili. So we're either buying homes, we're selling our older 2-story non-accessible homes, and we've been, obviously through the years, we've tried to have ranch-style accessible homes. We are building 2 on Long Pond Road. That doesn't mean that all of a sudden it's going to be open spots for all those people, because you still have to go through the certified residential process, but we understand that one of the biggest challenges right now, there's like 3,000 people on the CROW list in New York State. That's just emergency needs. And so it's a challenge, and you have to jump through. There's a lot of red tape. You have to jump through a lot of hoops. Just like I mentioned earlier, those 3 categories of emergency, substantial, and current needs. But to answer your question, we obviously see that there's a need, and so we are continually trying to expand. We can only build so many and buy so many because, again, at a certain point, too, we're nonprofit. We don't have unlimited funds. We wish we did.
Another resource, Autism Up was doing a housing study. If you've seen those surveys, being active with them, because I think the more the community is talking about it, the more organizations and the states are able to recognize it as a big concern.
There's and there are housing, so like I mentioned before that there's non-certified first. That's why a lot of families now are using their self-direction and are deciding, hey, we're going to buy a place or rent a place, and we can have other families, their loved ones can live there, and we're going to use our self-direction to pay for that. And that has been getting around the certified system, which can take a while. So.
In our network, EPI and Starbridge are also very active with self-direction planning, if you're looking for additional resources.
So I hate to wrap things up. Did anybody have any really short last-minute questions they wanted to ask? Well, I want to thank everyone for coming today. Y'all were a great crowd, and thank you to Matt, Peggy, and Shan for their information. I learned so much today. You guys are great. And I encourage everybody to come to our next presentation in September on early intervention. And thanks to our partners with Parents Helping Parents Coalition of Monroe County and the Challenger Miracle Field of Greater Rochester. Thank you, everyone, and have a great day.
Thank you.